Landlords, who was your worst tenant? Previous leasing agent here. This tenant is a Facebook anarchist. Came in every day and requested that we fax documents. This person did this around 3 times a day. They didn't have a job. They just tried to sue people all day. That is all they did. They were unemployed and on rental assistance. It was easier for us to just fax the documents than to argue with him. Posts on Facebook approximately 30 to 50 times a day. Personally, this is my favorite part. This person's grasp of spelling, grammar, and general sentence structure is such that reading their posts verbatim is gut-wrenchingly funny. This person has like 2 people who comment on their posts. Most of the comments made on this person's posts are just them commenting on their own post. The content of the posts themselves are also incredible. They include, but aren't limited to, how they are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, how they are a Hall of Famer, videos about politics, videos about aliens, and videos about the conspiracies of political figureheads hiding aliens. One time, this person tried to organize a Business Leaders of the World conference at the shared pool. They invited stars and famous people such as The Rock. Nobody came, so he just requested that I take pictures of him by the hot tub. They posted them on Facebook. They once posted 72 pictures of themselves on Facebook on a single day. The only difference between each picture was a slightly different posture. We had a business center for tenants to use computers. This person used them most days for extended periods of time. I once walked by when they were playing very loud alien sounds and they had both index fingers touching the screen of the computer. I asked them to stop. We had roofers replace the roof on their building. We got several emails asking if the roofers could fix a problem on their balcony. I had to explain several times that they were contracted for a specific job and that the job they were doing was fixing the roof and not fixing their balcony. The issue of the balcony was regarding a panel they claimed was loose. There were no panels on the balcony. We sent maintenance over on more than one occasion and there was no panel. When questioned about the panel, they usually tried changing the subject. U.S. Marshals contacted us and requested that if any gun-shaped packages were shipped to this tenant, to give them a call. This tenant tried to sue us on several occasions. They even used our own fax machine to fax the documents they were using to sue us. They faxed the documents to us. They used our own fax machine to send a document approximately 8 feet. Sent several lewd emails to one of the leasing agents. They were convinced that the leasing agent was trying to have relations with them. The emails are still in their file, and any time I need a laugh, I would read them. Makes poorly rendered Photoshop art mostly pertaining to Cleopatra. Calls themselves director because they make videos where they showcase their Cleopatra art paired with alien music. There are probably more stories, but I can't remember them all right now. That 5th one, you might have interrupted their transmission back to the mothership. Story 2. My current tenant just moved out. I have a beautiful home 3 years ago, 3-bedroom, fully solar, updated everything, nice bamboo floors. Then enter my tenant. Red flags were not immediate. She had a great history with prior residences. A couple of exceptions were made. She wanted to pay $100 less than I had listed, asking if she could plant things in the garden, etc. Fast forward 6 months or so, rent starts being late. Not only late, but she would not let me know until the day rent was due that she needed to pay 3 to 4 days later. When I could come by to collect the rent, she would tell me things were broken, disposal, sink clogged, etc., which is all fine, but she would tell me it has been broken for 3 weeks and just now decided to tell me. We talk and text frequently about rent and other things, yet she could never inform me when stuff was broken until I dropped by. This all came to a head when she got rats in the house. I go over to collect rent after 2 months of not being there, and holy hell, a fan globe was broken and the glass was all over the kitchen. For multiple days, they told me. She had a 4-year-old in the house too. The bathroom has roaches all in it, trash along the side of the house spilling out of cans, holes in the drywall, small but there, blinds, nice wooden ones, strings broken, and the house smells awful. She tells me there have been rats there for a few weeks. Well, I wonder if it has anything to do with all the trash outside and open food dishes in the sink that reek. I never in my life thought I would have to tell a grown woman with kids that yes, you need to put garbage in the garbage can. No, you cannot leave food out until it perishes, otherwise you get these lovely pests. Anyway, even though it isn't her lease to deal with rodent and pest control issues, I do it myself. I hired a company under contract to handle the whole thing for a 1 year guarantee for like $1,000. All she has to do is call the number I give her whenever she sees or hears a rat or anything. Well, guess what she does not do? She would occasionally text me saying she saw a rat. I called pest control to come take care of it, then nothing. This went on for like 6 months, all the while rats chewed my stove wires, now not under warranty since they don't cover pest issues, clogged the dishwasher, wrecked my cabinets, etc. They just moved out last week, holes in the doors now, looks like they tried to crowbar the interior doors open for some reason. Split jams, garbage left all over the front yard and back. My floors have this inexplicable grease all over and sticky things. Her child drew in crayon all over the doors. It's a mess. If you ever rent a place you care about, first stop caring about it, and second, be choosy and take a few months unrented to get someone you are sure about. Story 3. Steven. He and his girlfriend moved in. They led us to believe he was employed full-time and she was a student. Soon after, we were dealing with him cooking, eating, using common areas at like 2 to 4 a.m. in the morning constantly. Strong smells of like car battery in the early a.m., probably tweaking. His attempts at cleaning consisted of trying to mop the walls and surfaces instead of wiping them down or just using the mop on the floor. Cringes. Kept a puppy in the house in the room at times when he thought no one was around, which was a definite no-no. Late with his rent in his second month, became hostile with all the other housemates with almost any interaction or when asked to clean up his messes. Tried to pick fights with housemates to bait them to hit him or overreact. Luckily, we didn't. Dude was a psycho. Ended up giving him his 30 days notice before he had been here his second month. All the while, his poor girlfriend, who we all thought was in school, was actually pregnant with his kid, and that's why she was always home and they had been running from or avoiding her family. She was a nice girl, but you could tell she had no control in their relationship. He threatened us with all kinds of legal action, actually did have to get a lawyer and make sure we were in the clear. Worse, 3 months with a tenant and housemate. We actually threw a party when they left, and I can only imagine that poor girl's life, or the kids. Only have bad wishes for Steven since he was such a scumbag jerk. Story 4. Great gods, I don't know where to begin. Cat ladies, 25 to 40 cats in an apartment with hardwood floors. Probably $80,000 worth of damage. Guy who decides to go full Picasso on a recently completed renovated apartment complex, including getting paint on the newly polished and gorgeous oak hardwood floors. I'm really dreading telling my bosses about this one. Lying witch of a woman and her mother, got her back though. Young couple live in squalor, keep cats inside a shut bedroom door, have a kid, then get power and heat shut off on them in November. Sad really. Insane parking lady, incredibly hateful, gossipy, refuses to listen, always talks crap behind your back. I really can't wait to get rid of her. Grandma rents an apartment, lets her grandkid and her boyfriend move in, keep the place nice, then they break up, shut the power off themselves, and then turn the keys over to some squatter who is tossing bottles of bleach outside that smell like gasoline. Mr. Macho thinks it was cool to karate chop and roundhouse kick every door in the apartment. Roadhouse. Screw you, Mr. Macho. Miss Disgustings. Horribly gross people who don't clean and then wonder why they have mushrooms in the living room. Teenage kid of a Miss Disgusting that goes around peeping in everyone's windows at another complex. Turkey lady. She buys a frozen turkey, then puts it in the fridge and promptly leaves it for months. We all thought she was gone by the smell. She had barricaded her door, so it took us tearing down a fire door to get in. She was just there. She just didn't want to answer the door. So many college kids think that just because they are living on their own, they can do crap and get away with it. I've tossed out so many college kids, and it's always something kind of fun to do because their parents are almost always co-signers. Parents, make sure your kids live in the dorms. I could go on for days. Who is the worst? I don't even know anymore. The way they look at it, it's other people's stuff, it's not mine. If someone is going to go looting during a riot, they aren't going to loot their own home. They're going to loot and destroy what other people have. And if you don't want mushrooms in your living room, then hit that like button and subscribe to my channel now. It really helps us out, and you never know with mushrooms too. Story 5. I'm not a landlord, but my mother is the worst tenant you'll ever have. Moves into a house with 5 kids and just turns the place into a nightmare-filled house of horrors, a church to her hoarding. No pets allowed? Okay, make room for my 117 cats. Water damage, holes in the walls, broken windows, you name it, she'll destroy it. She never paid rent on time and turned on the waterworks about being a single mom every single month. Eventually, the State Board of Health kicks us out. She asks the landlord what to do with garbage when moving out. He says put it on the curb. She doesn't clarify that she'll be putting 500 bags of hoarded garbage and cat carcasses on the curb. Garbage slides will end cats, and we wouldn't find them until a decade later. Giant piles of garbage bags attract possums, rats, wild animals galore and get us on the front of the newspaper, which is sitting on my desk when I come home to school on Monday. House gets condemned and knocked down. Move to the next house, same thing. 9 years go by, condemned and knocked down. Next house, same thing. Condemned and knocked down. Don't let my hoarder mother move into your property. My siblings all recognize she's a hoarder, but the thing is my siblings are 7, 9, 11, and 13 years older than me. Because my mother was younger with her other kids, she had more energy that she put into being cruel to them. They had it worse than me, so they're simply not as close to my mother as I am. They're kind of emotionally detached from her a bit. Even mentioning the word hoarding around my mother will cause her to scream like someone in a horror movie going through an exorcism. She is not a friggin' hoarder. The way she acts almost makes it seem like she knows deep down she has a problem, but never would she ever admit to having a fault. She's a textbook narcissist, incapable of showing weakness or admitting to any fault. My siblings and I joke that in our entire lives, we don't think we've ever seen or heard my mother apologize for anything, ever. Every mistake she's ever made in her life has been someone else's fault, everyone. She'll frickin' oversleep for work and it's my fault because she had bad dreams the night before because of a movie I watched 4 years ago. She likes watching the show Hoarders to make fun of the disgusting people on it. Often, after visiting someone else's house, she'll talk about how their house isn't that nice or clean. It's so freaking delusional, I wonder if other people actually understand what the word surreal means like I do. Story 6. I do not have a tenant, but my friend here is telling me about a current tenant. This couple, nicknamed Dumb and Dumber, are helpless. She overloaded the bathroom outlet and flipped the outlet switch. She didn't know all she had to do was push the button back in and she would have electricity again. So she calls an electrician who warns her it will be a minimum of $150 for him to drive out there and fix this. He walks in and spends less than a second pushing the button in. She then sends the landlord the bill, which the landlord refused to pay. Calls asking who will clean their bathroom, mow their grass, can they come out to flip the breaker box for them? I don't like this fridge, buy us a new one. Why is it a big deal if we are late with rent? Our washing machine we moved in with isn't working well, isn't it your job to buy us a new one? What is an air filter and why do I have to change it? I need someone to hold our mail while we go on vacation, can you contact the post office? 2 absolutely helpless adults with kids. Oh, and I had to add this in. The air conditioner fails. She lets them know at maybe 9 p.m. at night. They contact an HVAC repair company who will be out there in the AM. Instead of waiting less than 12 hours, she goes to the store in the middle of the night and buys multiple window units to install at 2 a.m., which she cannot do because outlets are too hard for her. She then tells the landlord they are responsible for repaying her for the multiple window AC units. The HVAC guy had the AC repaired in less than an hour that morning. The tenant is still out $400 because legally the landlord doesn't have to pay her for that. Story 7. Didn't want the rent deposited. I had to go over to their house to pay. They were never home pretty much. Then I would get a stern knock on my door a couple of days later with them asking for the rent money as if I didn't just try and go frickin' pay. Things broke because of their lack of preventive maintenance. They would fix it once, but then tell me that if it broke again, they wouldn't pay for it anymore. When I left, they gave me only 30% of my deposit, claiming that they had to use the money to fix things and to pay for cleaning. Also claimed I stole appliances, like an iron and the microwave, both of which were mine. I just smiled and left and said thank you, went to an attorney with pictures I had taken when I moved in. They ended up having to pay the rest of the deposit plus extra and all the legal fees. Screw them. Also, LPT, take pictures and video when moving in. Damn straight, good for you. Crappy landlords and crappy tenants are the worst. Glad you made them pay. Story 8. The Dog Ladies. Friends of my father's bought a neighboring farm which came with a beautifully maintained classic country-style 3-bedroom house. Having taken out a massive bank loan to buy the new farm, they decided to rent out the house to help with payments. A couple showed up, wanting to live their dream of country life with their 2 German Shepherd dogs. They were charming ladies, and it sounded like a great match. Fast forward 2 years. They are almost 6 months delinquent on rent. The farmers are getting desperate. The ladies said if the landlords came on their property, they would have them arrested. There is clearly way more than 2 dogs here. The ladies are not even living inside the house. Only dogs are in the house. Humans are living in a shabby old camper van now parked out front. Nothing has been maintained. The house is clearly falling apart. The lawn is just weeds. The stench can be detected well before you get near the house. And this has to end. One blessed day, it did end. The ladies got up and moved their camper van and they were gone. But the dogs were still there. First call, SPCA. Now, this predates the internet carrying stories about massive animal hordes, but this would have been a major headline at the time. Over 60 dogs were seized from inside the house, plus there were several perished dogs found as well. The dogs had chewed and eaten away all of the original woodwork, walls, a lot of the flooring, anything they could. The excrement had caused everything to deteriorate through. Not 1 square inch of the home was salvageable. It was heartbreaking when the demolition came. The original family had worked so hard to meticulously maintain this gorgeous country home, and it was all plowed under only 2 years later. It was a total loss. I was too young to know what happened with insurance companies, but I do know they did not rebuild. Story 9. Years before he passed, my grandfather bought my grandmother a condominium in case she wanted to sell their house. It's in a wealthy area, although my grandmother loves their house too much, so she decided to rent it out. Even though the complex is beautiful, the string of bad tenants she had up until now was bordering on conspiracy. It was almost as if there was a line of these people waiting somewhere and one waited until the other was finished making our lives hell to step in, lather, rinse, and repeat. My grandmother asked me to sit in with her on the screening process for this one guy. He claimed to work at a factory that I'm blanking on what they made, but then he followed with, and I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I'm a narc. My grandmother was wooed by this guy's tales of doing busts and decides that if he's capable of keeping dealers off the street, he's good for the rent. That guy paid 1 month's worth of rent and then told my grandmother he might have some people after him. My dad called this guy's boss at the factory, whom he left as a reference on his credit application. The guy said, I don't trust that guy and neither should you. My father evicted the guy for the sake of my grandmother's safety. The second person my grandmother should have known better than to rent to, she felt sorry for this guy because he was in his late 50s and got kicked out of his girlfriend's house. He promised that his job at the local country club as a caddy raked him in $1,000 weekly. After 2 months, he amassed thousands in back rent. My grandmother warned him that he would be kicked out if he didn't pay, so he left overnight and stole a minibar that also housed utensils and could hold plates in the bottom cabinet portion. He changed his phone number and was never heard from again. The third person was a woman in her mid-20s trying to get away from her cruel boyfriend. She ended up spending 6 months in the condo while stiffing my grandmother for 3 of those months. She admitted to my grandmother that she went on a shopping spree with her rent money. As a result, she evicted herself, yet she asked her sister and future brother-in-law to buy out her lease. This wasn't even in the lease, and my grandmother was beside herself. And so enter tenant number 3's sister and future brother-in-law, or FBIL. Long story short, FBIL badgered my grandmother on a near daily basis about buying her condo. He was imposing conditions like replacing the brand new flooring and asked for new appliances. The appliances were already brand new. Because my grandmother repeatedly refused, this idiot felt justified to cease paying rent, $5,000 in backed rent, and caused $2,000 worth of damage when he learned he was evicted. Aside from the broken mirrors and graffiti on the walls, the pile of dirt from the vacuum with the Santa Claus ornament perched atop was the icing on the proverbial cake. He got taken to court and lost, but the guy still wasn't happy he had to pay for the vandalism. He tried weaseling out of that one, and the judge ended up attaching this guy's wages to guarantee my grandmother would be reimbursed. And I forgot to mention that FBIL had a brand new 65-inch TV on the wall. Box was sitting out when my mom and I presented him with his spreadsheet of unpaid rent. He complained that he couldn't afford what my grandmother was charging and that she wasn't being fair. Story 10. Son of a landlord here. Parents own a flat where I was born and raised while living on the top floor. About 10 years ago, they had these two tenants living in the unit below them. I called them Dumb and Dumber, both males. I was around 25 at the time and just moved back in with my parents to save up some money to buy my first house. D&D were around the same age. My parents always stressed the importance to new tenants about the building being a quiet building, as stated in the lease. No parties, no loud music after 9 p.m., just be respectful to your neighbors. Well, D&D liked to party and have lots of late-night company at least 5 nights a week. One night, about 1 in the morning, they were having a party. I was just getting back to the house, finishing my smoke outside, when I heard my mom knocking on D&D's door. I heard her say, "Knock off the party and keep it down," as other tenants had already called to complain. As my mom got back to her apartment, I finished my smoke and started walking up. As I walked past their door, I heard one of them say, "She's lucky I didn't answer the door. I would have snapped on her." Oh, hell no. I'm a pretty big guy, 6'5", 240 pounds. So I had no problem knocking on their door. When I did, the whole place went silent. One answers the door and I say, "So who's gonna snap on who now?" They denied ever saying it and apologized for the loudness, yada yada yada. I told them next time, I'll just call the cops, and if they want to party, just move and find a different place to live and read the lease more carefully. I think I scared the crap out of them because we didn't hear much from their apartment after. Other than that, my parents have been kind of lucky with tenants. Well done for standing up for your mom. Alright, I hope you enjoyed the video and all the crazy stories about the crazy tenants in this one. And if you made it this far, I'm sure you're also going to enjoy health inspectors. What's the worst health violation you've seen? Story 4 was just grossly unimaginable. I'll see you in that video, and thank you for watching this one.